Hmm.
Okay, so all right, we should be live. And I'm going to try to preview the audio for myself here, make sure I can be heard. Okay, so looks like I've got good audio. Let's test you guys because the desktop audio stream is different from my microphone. So you guys are on a different audio stream. So let's get a sound check from Steve. Steve, say something.
Hello, beef jerky for the win.
All right. George, say something.
Testing, testing.
I like it. Alec, I don't know if he's mic'd up, but if he wants to say something
Has
as well.
been-
All right. So YouTube chat. Can you hear me? And can you hear these guys? I know you can hear me, but these guys, I want to make sure you can hear them. All right. So let's see. I'll preview it a little bit. But if he wants to say something, George, say something.
Testing.
All right. It looks like audio is good. So no problems this time around. For those that were here last month, we had a situation where for the first 45 minutes or so, we had no audio working from all of the guests on the stream. So it was just my audio working. I mean, we had a chat, but nobody could follow it.
Well, so we started on the right foot this week.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I didn't keep that whole stream up. I split it up when I finally got the audio working, and I deleted the 45 minutes where the audio, because people would just be complaining. It'd just be nothing but comments. Hey, there's no audio in it. So we split it up, and there was a video release that actually did have some audio. But yeah, looks like everything's good this week. Yeah, everybody in the chat says they can hear us. Let me get my setup here. Yeah, hey DT. All right, yeah. Doing CPP here. Or CPP, C++, I guess. Screw Rust, by the way. So I guess he's a fan of C++ and not a fan of Rust. Okay. Yeah. Amit, ADT, respect from India. Yeah, I get a pretty good size audience actually from India.
I still think a lot of people. I think more users come from outside the U.S. than inside the U.S.
As far as what Linux users?
Yep.
Well,
I would definitely agree with that.
I think I am the only one from Lebanon, at least.
Yeah. But
Given
as
your
far
stories,
as
I would think so too.
But as far as my analytics, I can tell you, outside of the U.S. audience, some of the countries that are very highly represented in the analytics, India, Brazil, China. Like there's a lot of people that use Linux for sure in those nations because people are watching the content. So, yeah, but some countries, I guess Linux is a much more niche kind of thing that people don't know about. Apparently in Lebanon, Steve's the only one that uses it. So
yeah.
So all the views from Lebanon on your YouTube analytics is just Steve rewatching stuff.
Yeah. I don't even know if Lebanon registers. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get into some Linuxy discussion. The very first thing I wanted to bring up, because it is something that has affected a lot of people, including me. I've ran into this issue 2 or 3 days ago where I was actually working on putting out a new ISO for DTOS. I hadn't put out a new ISO in a couple weeks. I've been working on it, but I didn't want to build the ISO until I had, a few things straightened out in it. And, I tested the new ISO I built and it looked like it was good. I decided to upload it to SourceForge. The next day, I download that ISO from SourceForge and try to install it. It doesn't work.
Oh,
I'm like, why in the hell doesn't it work? It worked when I tested it before I uploaded it. Why doesn't it work now? And I thought, well, maybe it's like a corrupted download or something. Downloaded it. Yeah, it's nothing like that. What it is, DTOS, the installer, it's a net installer, right? So it's always grabbing the latest packages. There was an update in between the time I uploaded the ISO. Apparently, there's some issues. Well, we're going to talk with Steve here in a minute. There's some issues with the Linux kernel. In this case, with the VM, I think the issue was with Mesa. There's a version of, there was an update to Mesa that breaks certain video drivers, especially I've noticed in the Arch forums, people that are running NVIDIA, you may want to update your Vulkan drivers because I think some of that is causing issues. With the VM, I just needed to make sure that I had some Vulkan packages installed at all because it's not something I would normally ship in a VM. But I installed like Vulkan Intel or something, and now the ISO actually boots. So if you're on Arch or an Arch-based system and you run into this weird issue where you reboot and all you get is a black screen, and it's a black screen that you can't get out of, like you can't even drop to a TTY. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to use a USB stick that's got another Linux operating system on it, so you can cheroot back into the machine. Downgrade Mesa. It's probably the easiest thing to do. Just downgrade to the previous version of Mesa and just stay on it until the problem is fixed.
This represents two problems. First problem, downgrade is not included on any Arch ISO except custom distros, Arch-based distros. So if you want to downgrade, you need to get an AUR helper. If you're using vanilla Arch, like the Arch ISO, you'll have to get an AUR helper, and then through the AUR helper, install downgrade, or just install downgrade from the AUR by git cloning and compiling it yourself. Another problem, this is the problem with number one, is not a lot of users are going to do that or understand how to do that.
No, you're right. That's the big problem with this bug is you and me. I mean, we all know we probably I got a USB stick sitting in front of me that's got Ubuntu LTS on it, but I can use this to cheroot into this machine if I need to. Most people are not just going to have random USB sticks with Linux operating systems sitting around, and even if they did, cheroot. What the hell's cheroot?
Exactly.
Right? They don't. So yeah.
Another issue is because I decided to rejoin the Arch Linux Discord server, the Arch install, Discord server, to see what's going on. Everybody is encountering this issue, and some people are having issues as far as soon as they run as soon as they get to the kernel, they run the Arch install and the kernel is generating the MK init CPIO, the computer freezes.
Right.
So
you know what? If somebody does have a random drive, it's usually a Ventoy USB with a bunch of random distros.
Yeah.
But another thing I noticed is yesterday, a good friend of mine, Smoke, on my server. Shout out to Smoke. He prefers installing Arch using as he calls it, headless. So basically the Arch install. So he installed vanilla Arch immediately because he has an NVIDIA 3080. Immediately after install, as soon as he installs KDE, black screen. But when he installs GNOME, it works just fine. So he's sticking to GNOME. But I don't know if it's an SDDM issue or just kernel.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Is SDDM was the login manager that I was using, and that's where it freezes. Is it's trying to load that first.
I think it's an SDDM requiring an update as well.
Yeah,
so a lot of things require updates,
and that's where things get weird because I say downgrade Mesa would fix the problem that I had, but is it really a Mesa problem, or is it a Vulkan driver problem, or is it a SDDM problem? Because here's the thing. He installed Zero Linux even as soon as he gets the system is installed and he reboots, black screen because it uses SDDM. But could it be SDDM? Because I asked him to try GDM. He tried GDM, but GDM mixed with KDE doesn't play well. Right. So I don't know what to blame, but it's mostly the kernel because I read, thanks to the CachyOS people and the what's it called, the KOS distro maintainers, they were like, there's a patch that is required to bypass this issue in the kernel. It's mentioned on the KML
if nobody knows what the KML is, it's the kernel mailing
kernel
list.
mailing list. Right, yeah. We're all subscribed to that, don't you know, Steve?
I'm subscribed to it because I'm a distro maintainer, but I went to the KML, and the maintainer of KOS, reported the issue. And the patch is there. They created a patch, but they didn't merge it with 6.14.7 or 8 or 15 or 6.15. So the upcoming kernel 6.15 does not include yet the patch that is required to fix all this crap that's happening. So we're in for a rough ride if they don't merge it.
Yeah.
And the thing that really weirded me out was when I went through the Arch bug tracker, they said that they're not gonna push the 6.14.7 or 8 kernel. They're gonna wait until the patch is merged. But what do we see this morning? We see that they went ahead and pushed 6.14.7. So what happens on the bug tracker is different than what's happening on the Arch distros. They're not in sync. So this is a big problem. They need to address this. They shouldn't be out of sync. They need to talk to each other and understand what's going on instead of shipping broken packages. But then again, usually when we utter the word Arch Linux, people are immediately going to say problematic. They push broken packages. But people are like that about Arch. It doesn't happen often anymore. It happens once every blue moon, but it still happens.
Well, this is going to be one of those periods of time where, for me, what I'm going to do, at least on my home computer, because I know it's going to be problematic because it's got NVIDIA. So it seems like people with NVIDIA are having the issues with this more than AMD. This computer at my office is AMD, so I'm not as concerned. I may update this machine, but the one at home, I'm just going to wait maybe a couple weeks before I update the system again. Just hopefully, you would think in a couple of weeks, all of this will go away.
Well, if they don't merge the patch in 6.15, I don't think it's going to be fixed by then.
What about the LTS kernel?
Yeah, keep an LTS. That's why you should always keep an LTS kernel
matter of
around.
fact, I should go ahead and I think I've got both the regular kernel and the LTS installed on both my machines, so I could use the other kernel. So
I do too. But here, and guess what? As a surprise to no one, the CachyOS team merged the patch in their CachyOS kernel, so people can install CachyOS with KDE with no problems.
Yeah.
Because the CachyOS team are awesome.
I don't know what happened, but it was like maybe a month ago or so when I was trying to install Linux. I installed it. Actually, this happened with OpenSUSE. I installed it, and then it did an update, and then I couldn't boot into. Maybe that's I was experiencing something similar, but in a different way. I don't know. But I ended up not using the latest. It was weird because it was when I upgraded to the I think the newest kernel at the time. Weird.
The weird thing is the issue with kernel 6.14.7 is not happening on Fedora based systems. For example, like I'm preparing Bazite because that's the distro that was voted to be tested on my first live stream back. It's booting fine. But then again, I don't have any NVIDIA machines anymore. I am on AMD now. I have a 7800 XT, so I went ahead and updated, no issue.
Well, and that was the issue. Because I was using AMD and a dual AMD system. When I had the issue with upgrading to the 6.14, I don't remember what sub version it was.
It could have been a bad Mesa update because
it was KDE. So that's when you said
it could be SDDM or
yeah.
I'll have to try the latest.
It's hard to the problem with testing what the problem with this particular bug was for me, Steve, was because as soon as you log in, you get the black screen. It's like it might be SDDM. Maybe I could test out another login manager. Well, I
But
can't.
you can't go to the TTY.
But you can't even get to a TTY to disable SDDM. Like you literally have to cheroot into the machine to do anything. So
well, you know, at the beginning of the stream, I was actually I had hibernated my system, and I tried to bring it back, and it wouldn't. So I'm probably not
that's a common
that
problem with KDE, and that's why I don't use Hibernate or Sleep or whatever.
Another topic I'm going to get into maybe a little later is some issues with both GNOME and KDE. But first, let's switch to some happy news, because I did want to mention, just because there were a million articles about it, and it wasn't like it's surprising news or anything. This was always going to happen. Microsoft obviously is now open sourced the Windows subsystem for Linux. It's licensed under the MIT license, which is what pretty much the license Microsoft always uses for all their open source stuff. They license everything under the MIT license,
which is good.
Yep, and you know, obviously people have asked my thoughts. You know, I've gotten some questions about it. I'm not going to make a video or anything about it. What are my thoughts? I think that's a good thing, and I think again, it wasn't surprising. Yeah,
that's great news, but we can wait and see before judging. I'm not going to judge a book just by its cover. I need to read the story. I need to sit back and watch and keep up to date. But here's the thing that comes to mind: when if something is open source like WSL, there will be forks. Everybody's going to fork and make a version of their own. So, but that's going to, on the positive note, that's going to put more eyes on Linux.
Yeah.
I'm not sure as far as how complicated the project is. I'm sure, you know, like it's not the kind of software that just anybody's going to fork, right? It's like it would be a lot of work to do something drastically different with it, and you know.
Well, that's the other thing.
Well, it'd be like I can fork System D if I wanted to, but like, what the hell am I going to do with it? Right. Well, I can fork LibreOffice, but damn, what I need like at least 100 full-time developers to help me, you know, do something with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where they become hobby projects or whatever, and you know that's great, but usually for like somebody wants to tinker, but you know, it's
like they did with Arch install. There's like 30 different forks of Arch install.
Right. Well, Arch install, that's a small enough project. Like one person that really dedicating a lot of time can do something with. But a better example was when Audacity was being forked because of licensing shenanigans or whatever. You know, everybody decided, hey, I'm just going to fork Audacity. We're going to create a fork. Okay, well, it's a project that's kind of complicated, and like literally none of those forks ever did anything.
No,
they never saw any development, and they all died.
Well, I'm glad that people are discovering, you know, that, you know, maybe it's not practical, and you know, maybe put that energy, you know, towards something that exists already. And I think that's a big problem, is there's a lot of fragmentation.
Right. You don't want to just fork something just to say you forked it. Like,
well, I mean, everything's
a lot of people just do it out of protest. You know, it's just a form of protest, is all it is. They're never going to do anything with the fork, right? It's just a FU to the original project.
Yeah,
well, that's
I mean, how many of the forks have actually superseded the original in any way ever?
One. One fork of no. There's one fork of Audacity that is getting a lot of eyes on it. It's Tenacity.
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah.
I've used it, and it's
exactly Audacity minus all the issues.
Yeah, and it's not without its issues sometimes too.
Yeah, it's because it's copy pasta of Audacity, just small iterations to the UI, and all the shenanigans removed. So it's you cannot theme it, you cannot do anything with it, just like Audacity. It's just there.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's why I didn't include Audacity in my toolkit. I instead included Tenacity, the Flatpak, not the native package, because as I've learned throughout the 5 years I've been maintaining Zero Linux, it's if I learned one thing, it's whenever you can ship Flatpaks that would avoid people any dependency issues, do it. If they don't like it, they can always install the native package themselves. But
well, when you get like multimedia things like audio and video players and editors, and Kden Live's a perfect example. They've got so many dependencies. Yeah. Like I'm sure you've experienced this with like the native packaging with Kden Live on Arch, where things will be out of date.
Especially if you want to install it on
like MLT, you know, will be. The new Kden Live doesn't like the current version of MLT, and you know, sometimes you get weird.
So it's better to install it as a Flatpak, especially if you are on GNOME, for example, or Hypeland. It's better for you. You're better off with the Flatpak. You get less, like if you want to use Dolphin, for example, because there's a lot of indecision around the file manager on Hypeland. If you want to use Dolphin because you prefer its transparency, its blur, its whatever, its integration with Hypeland,
you might be the only one installing Dolphin outside of KDE, because you know it's got a lot of KDE dependencies.
Well, guess what? The Hypeland team developers they chose Dolphin over any other file manager to ship with Hypeland.
But I'm assuming they're installing some other KDE stuff that maybe was already there anyway. So like the settings manager and things like that.
And not settings manager, just a couple of other things. But
for example, on my system, I actually, for somebody like me, I could install Dolphin and use it, and it wouldn't require too many more dependencies because I already have Kden Live on the system, which is going to bring in some stuff as well. I think I've got K3B, like the disk burner. I've got some KDE stuff here, so I wouldn't have too many dependencies. But if you don't already have some KDE applications on your system and you install Dolphin, you're going to be shocked at the things that get downloaded.
This is the main complaint of users using GNOME, for example, Zero G or the GNOME edition of Zero Linux. They keep asking me, why do we have so many KDE dependencies on GNOME? Guess what? It's because I included Arc. Arc is the KDE archive manager.
Okay.
ARK.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what Arc you were talking about. Yeah, okay.
ARK is a KDE, it's a Qt-based archive manager. So it brings in a lot of KDE dependencies. So I decided to remove it and put File Roller instead, which is a GNOME.
That's the one, I think pretty much everybody installs anyway, regardless of what they're running as File Roller. For me, I like pzip, which I think that might actually be a Qt app. Pzip.
I love it.
P7
I use it too.
PEA zip.
Part of it is because
you talked about it. You made a video about it.
Yeah, part of the reason why I like it is because I can use a graphical interface, because sometimes I'm just too tired to care about.
Yeah, but isn't it a Qt app? Isn't it a Qt-based app?
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. So that would bring in a lot of Qt-based dependencies with it.
Actually, now that I think about it, I'd have to go research it a little bit. Can't remember offhand. It may be one of those applications that actually has a Qt and a GTK version.
Yeah.
But which is always weird that some developers do that. They got the two different versions. I'm not sure if it's worth that extra time as far as
if they don't maintain anything other than that, then it's fine. But if you since we are talking about good news, there is more good news.
All right.
Thanks to you and your DTOS script, I created a script and I finally bit the bullet and I started using Hypeland on my laptop. So as Josh keeps joking, every Patreon cast he appears on, when is Hyper Zero coming? Well, Hyper Zero is here in script form. I'm not going to release an ISO. It's just in script form. It will install Hypeland if you don't have it, so you can run it as a post-install script and install Hypeland. It will install Hypeland and the Zero Linux config or RICE or whatever you want to call it. But the RICE, the configuration was not created by me. It was created by two good friends of mine, D-Dubs and Array. Array did the config, D-Dubs was the advisor. I just created the install script. But we decided to fork the KDE styling and do it on Hypeland. So we're using the lay-in theme, the telecircle icon pack, the same everything as KDE. So it mimics. We even have a dock. We're using NWG dock, Hypeland or Wayland, and I'm finally using Hypeland to keep up with all these all the hype around it, and I'm using it on my laptop. I'm not using it in a VM anymore. I'm using it on bare metal, and the config exists. You can go to the Zero wiki. It's all there. Yeah, Hyper Zero exists. So now Josh, if he's watching this, he's gonna be smiling. Right. So Hyper Zero is out there.
And one more time, he's gonna show up.
Yeah. So it wasn't. Hyperland is not as difficult as I thought it would be, but I still cannot remember my keybinds. Oh, the only keybinds I remember is super space for Rofi, super N for Thunar, because we opted for Thunar. I opted to select more GTK than Q. And I use the Pocket GNOME instead of the Hyper Pocket Agent, because the Hyper Pocket Agent looks like it's from the 70s. So, and that's it. And Super B for the browser. And I opted to include Falcon to be neutral. I don't want to include any big browser out there. It's up to the user to select whatever they want later.
Well, but I promise you, they're all going to be selecting something other than Falcon.
Of course.
Hey, I use it sometimes.
I do too.
To download another browser?
No, I use it for VPN. Mm-hmm. I put a VPN on it, and I use VPN in it. That's it.
No, I use it if I'm testing something in a VM or something like that. Nothing for like, widespread use, but
and I use it to browse YouTube, to watch videos that I don't want to appear on my timeline. So it's logged out. I can watch whatever I want on YouTube without them showing up on my timeline, because I watch Arabic videos on Falcon. I don't want Arabic videos to show up on my timeline.
I first learned about it because I had played around with the PC BSD, which eventually became TrueOS, and then Project Trident, and then now it's
just kind of gone now. Yeah, I remember PC BSD. Yeah, I played around with it back in the day.
Yeah, the same.
That's how I learned about Falcon, because I believe it was the default web browser.
Yeah, it was a KDE centric operating system.
You can actually trace some of the lineage to it too, where they actually a lot of the team members ended up switching and adopting, I think, Void Linux.
Yeah, Void is very BSD like in their what they do. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's now someone we all know, Zany, who switched to FreeBSD or OpenBSD. I forget.
I believe he's OpenBSD was the one that he was making videos about a few years ago. Yeah, he was big into OpenBSD. So I'm assuming, he's circled back to it.
If I hear Linux users adopting a BSD, I most frequently hear that it's OpenBSD, even though there are several desktop variants out there like Dragonfly and Ghost and Midnight. But
I mean, you're going to get a better desktop experience for normal users on FreeBSD or anything based on it than you are OpenBSD. Certainly better than NetBSD and things like that are not really, they're more server.
Yeah, they're more specific.
Right.
I mean, literally, FreeBSD's foundations thing is the power to serve. I mean, it literally is a server.
I mean, they're all server operating systems, but FreeBSD is going to be the better.
Nomad BSD is actually pretty good if you like something that's a persistent USB installation.
I've played with it. Yeah, I actually like that one. Yeah,
I think I actually heard of it through you years ago.
There's on Fostodon today. I saw a post from one of I don't know if he's a BSD developer or what, but he posted something like the OpenBSD users love their TUIs. So he's creating a TUI for them for the sysctl. He's creating a sysctl TUI for OpenBSD or FreeBSD, I don't remember, but it was on Mastodon. So he's like, all the FreeBSD or OpenBSD users love their TUIs, so I'm creating one for them, one more for them.
Right.
That was funny to see. In other news, distro news.
Yeah.
What's the last weird distro you tried? Is it Anduin OS?
No, that was, yeah. And that video got a bajillion views, and I don't understand. And this is, I actually wanted to bring this and not just necessarily make the topic about Anduin OS, but it seems like every time one of these things crops up, why are all these Windows clones, these distros that try to mimic Windows, why are they so popular? Why did they get so much attention? Because I've seen this with other projects in the past, the Windows FX distro, which was just a straight scam. And I made videos about that, trying to warn people how incredibly dangerous that thing was, because it didn't even, like, all of your logins and passwords and email addresses were just plain text files that you could get with a curl command in the terminal. And it's like, hey, guys, do not buy a license for this thing, right? So
I think there's an element of starved for content to a certain degree, because everybody's always looking, instead of fostering.
Well, it's not the content creators. I was asking the question. They get views. Right?
Well, no.
So
what
there's
I'm saying
people
is
that want to consume that content. I'm assuming people are also installing it. If that many people are viewing articles and videos about stuff like Anduin OS, there are definitely people installing it. And I was just wondering what the appeal
There's a lot of tire kickers in the Linux community. Everybody's looking to see if the next thing is going to be the thing that will fulfill whatever emptiness they have in their distro. Why do you think distro hopping is so popular? Is I think there's something about what attracts people into the open source Linux community. Yeah,
I guess, but I don't know. I guess because I'm not one of those people that long for Windows. Like, oh man, I wish Linux was more like Windows.
That's my problem, is that why do they spend so much time trying to mimic Windows and Mac?
Yeah,
just use those things. I mean, they want that, maybe because they want that visual appeal. They're still attracted to it.
Yeah, exactly, because it's easier.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could get by with the common desktop environment because I grew up before even having Windows.
No, I could use Tom's window manager that comes with the default X11 server if I had to.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, everybody's trying to like hypermile their hardware. And yeah, I understand a lot of people will keep using, old hardware. But I'm like, I didn't spend the money I did to make my machine a production workstation, prosumer thing, just to minimize. I want the latest and greatest visuals. I want my hardware to be used to make it feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of it, even though I could theoretically still install DOS 6.2 on my hardware.
Yeah, but shipping a distro that looks like Windows does not solve the.
It does not
solve the underlying Linux issues with compatibility issues.
Correct. But clearly Microsoft and Apple have done something right, where duplication. What did they say? Something about duplication is the greatest form of flattery, or something like that. So I understand there's an appeal for the visualness of it, but it's like, I also understand of wanting something under the hood different, because I can relate. But I also am just like, we don't need another one.
Yeah. Also,
like
as a Linux maintainer, Steve, it's not. Excuse me, my screen went to sleep there. Haven't moved my mouse in a while. It's kind of really easy to mimic the Windows desktop or the Mac desktop. We had this problem with their 5-10 years ago, probably closer to 10 years ago. There were all of these distros that were trying to mimic Mac OS X. And all it was KDE distros that put the panel at the top and had a dock centered at the bottom. And, used an icon set that was pretty much just straight ripped from macOS, which probably wasn't legal. But hey, and then we throw on the macOS-like wallpaper. I guess it wasn't anything that would take more than like 3 minutes of your time to do this.
Well,
like, what do we need?
They went as far as to make the menu and give the menu an Apple logo and add the default Apple menu. So the menu, the file, the edit, the shutdown, and whatever. So they went very far into the detailing. It's like getting a knockoff. It's like getting a knockoff Apple device that under the hood is Android.
One thing I do have to say, if anybody has ever heard of this project, and maybe they haven't, but there was a I don't want to say distro, but there's a community, a movement that was trying to take a lot of the open source aspects of Mac OS 10 called Pure Darwin, and they kind of floundered a little bit here and over the years, but they've actually started to come back a little bit, and they're trying to create binary compatibility with Mac OS. Even they don't want the GUI to look like Mac.
There's another project called PearOS, if you heard of it.
Yeah, that was actually what I was thinking about. The distro that was very popular there many years ago. It's been dead for a long time.
It's been 10 years. Yeah.
But PearOS was like a visual clone of Apple, but under the hood it was Ubuntu or Debian.
Yeah, it was I think it was to mimic the very early like Mac 10 OS
the early Mac
10.1
Mac
to
OS
10.4, 5, the pre-Intel era. Yeah.
I still have an ISO lurking around somewhere on my hard drives of PearOS, because the last one they released, or I don't know if they released it or somebody forked the project and released it, but it was mimicking I don't know which Mac OS 10 it was, but it's Mojave. I think it was Mojave. So I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't work. Nothing works. You try to install Seam, it doesn't install because they had their own private repositories. They didn't put anything on there.
Yeah, they were really good. I mean, visually it looked really good.
It did.
Yeah,
it didn't function.
I just don't ever remember what happened to it.
Yeah, it disappeared since.
Yeah,
but
like most distros, they don't last forever. So
nothing lasts forever. Come on, it only lasts as much as its maintainers. So, but like in the when it comes to Undoing OS, my friend did a video of it comparing gaming on Anduin OS and other distros. The difference was margin of error, 1%, 1.5%, 0.5% in either way. So it's Linux under the hood. So no matter how you dress it up, it's still Linux at the end of the day. Users are still going to go through issues and have to solve them just as if they switch to a regular Linux distro. So that doesn't change anything. And when you after updating, guess what? Half his settings and configurations get squashed by the update, like the extension that centers the icons on the taskbar. They go back to the last thing. The only thing that stays is the wallpaper. Everything else gets undone after a single update.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons why I just don't hop anymore as far as distro hopping. At the end of the day, they're all going to have the same things under the hood. It's all the bash shell, the core utils, all that stuff. Everything's the same on every distro. Right? At the end of the day, it's just a little bit of dressing on top of it that's a little different. And if you're not interested in most of that stuff, then distro hopping essentially becomes a pointless activity.
The only exception to this rule is, again, CachyOS, because CachyOS, like in this example where the kernel is broken, they fixed it, whereas the Arch maintainers did not. Like they are doing Arch maintainers'
Well,
job.
you're making the argument now, Steve, that we all should be on Debian stable, and then we wouldn't have to worry about any of these problems.
Well, hey, everybody and their mama recommended that for my home lab to use Debian server or Ubuntu server for my home lab.
That's definitely what I would go with, Ubuntu LTS server.
Well, I'm crazy. Call me crazy, but I'm
you put Arch on it.
Yeah.
I agree about using Ubuntu or Debian as a stable server, because that's usually the first thing that I grab. And
except in my case, there's no DE, there's nothing. It's just base devel, the packstrap, and Docker and Docker Compose. That's it. That's all it has on it. So if you only install these things, nothing will break.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I find if you use like a VPS provider like DigitalOcean or Linode or anything like that, I believe a lot of their stuff that comes pre packaged, they're
they're droplets.
They're droplets. I mean, right. A lot of them, when you use something that's already pre-made, they're usually on a Ubuntu LTS.
Yeah.
I think they offer a few different operating systems, but yeah, Ubuntu LTS server is kind of the one you want to
include Arch. They even include Arch.
Yeah, and they may even include things like Gentoo, and like they include some weird stuff. But you're a madman. You're a madman if you're.
Yeah, but for container, when it comes to containers, the best is Alpine, because it's the lightest one out there. That's why LXCs. If you don't know what LXCs are, they're basically
containers.
They contain basically, let's say you decided to deploy image. Basically, what image LXC is, it's Alpine with image on top.
One of the things that Canonical was pushing LXC?
Behind that. I don't know if they were the ones, but I found those on Proxmox custom scripts. So they all use Alpine under the hood, because it's the lightest, it's the best to use, and you can share by using LXCs. You share the host kernel. Whereas if you have a custom distro like I do, like Arch, it's using the Arch kernel. It's not using Proxmox's old and decrepit kernel,
right?
The host. So, but I prefer it that way. But I'm not saying it's the right way to do things. Absolutely not. But I am crazy. Like I said, I do it that way. If one container goes down, it's gonna bring everything else with it. But so far, I've been running it for a whole year, almost a whole year, and it's been stable. The only thing I suffered was image going down, because I didn't read the update changelog. They changed databases,
and so I definitely misremembered who was initially responsible for LXC. It wasn't Canonical; it was actually IBM in 2008.
Yeah.
About 16 years ago.
LXCs are amazing. LXCs are just Alpine.
Yeah, and that goes beyond a little bit. I mean, I have a little understanding of it, but I'm definitely not a system administrator other than my own stuff, because primarily, IT is not my even though I cross over a lot, and I could have gone down that path, but for me, I'm mainly a desktop user.
Yeah, same.
I'm the same. I mean, none of us here work in IT. So that's not. We just play one on TV. Right?
So I just wanted to put my mini PC to some use, because it was gifted to me when I was in Serbia. So the best use for it is having image move away from all cloud crap. So now, as soon as I take a picture with my phone, it syncs to my image instance. Done deal.
Well, before, when we were talking about Debian, I did want to mention like some distro releases. We're still waiting on the new Debian 13, which will probably drop sometime in the next month or 3, hell, maybe 6 months, because Debian's one of those distros. They don't release until it's ready. So you can't pin down a date. It could drop tomorrow. Who knows? But I know a lot of people are waiting on it because the old Debian is old, right? It seems like every time, once you get past a year and a half with the last release, people are like, man, when's the next Debian going to drop? Well, we're getting close. Not out yet, but we did have the new Red Hat Enterprise Linux come out the other day, and so all your Rail-based distros like Alma are updating as well.
I guess 10 came out, huh?
Yeah, 10 is out.
Nice.
Yeah, and Fedora 42 is out. Let's keep that on the side, because if you watch, I don't know what's his name, the guy with the beard, the old guy, I forgot his name.
The old guy with the beard that talks about Linux.
I was this DJ Ware.
DJ Ware, yeah, DJ Ware.
DJ Ware, okay, yeah, I know him.
Yeah. DJ Ware made a video.
Talk about old Unix neckbeards. Well, that's not a very good description, right?
DJ Ware made a video about the Fedora 42 audit, and it failed the audit with flying colors.
Yeah.
It is flawed beyond flawed. So anything based on Fedora 42 will inherit those issues, security issues. We're not talking desktop userland issues. We're talking under the hood, low-level security issues. It shouldn't have passed the green the green flag or the checkmark flag out the door because of these issues, but they decided to release it anyway. So
well, that's kind of normal for Fedora.
It is kind of like the bleeding edge of that.
I mean,
line.
That's why I don't really, people ask like distros recommendations, like for a new user, especially for somebody that's not in the IT space that doesn't work with like Red Hat, and maybe they want to run something kind of like Red Hat on their home computer. I understand why people would run Fedora, but like just for normal users, I would never install Fedora on their machines. Like, my mom, I'm not going to put her on a Fedora.
I used to love using Fedora, and it kind of got me back into Linux years ago. But lately, I can't touch it. I just, something about it just doesn't feel the same as it used to.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on it.
Well, it does seem to be a lot of times, like a lot of good desktop Linux distributions seem very coherent. They have a spit and polish to them. They look like Ubuntu always looks good. Manjaro always looks good. And you kind of know that, hey, they've got an idea. They got a vision. They know where they're going. Where Fedora is completely incoherent. It's all over the place. They're always introducing new experimental features, and, it's more of a playground.
Well, it also has its own bleeding edge. With like you just touched
on. Rawhide, or you talking about the extra repos?
No. I was thinking of Silverblue or whatever it is.
Oh yeah,
Rawhide.
Yeah. Well, you've got that too. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of different things you can do as far as branches.
Rawhide, I don't recommend any regular user install to install Rawhide, because Rawhide is made for them internally to test super bleeding edge stuff.
And why would you install Fedora if you wanted a rolling release? I sometimes get people asking me this question with things like Ubuntu. Hey, I wish Ubuntu had a rolling release. Well, that's kind of not what they're trying to be a stable distro. It's not trying to be. If you want a rolling release, go install Arch, right? That's what you.
I think that tech and I think we've gotten to a certain point. I think I've said this before on stream, is that I think we got to a point where we've really gone past the law of diminishing returns with a lot of things in Linux. And I really wish operating systems would have a good stable release every 3 years. And then maybe every once in a while you get a feature update or something like that.
I think the Debian model about every 2 years is perfect. Give me one every 2 years.
Okay, but that too. You guys say that, but here's what I encounter on various servers on Discord. It's I envy you guys. You have the latest version of X and Y. Why is it taking 2 years on my Debian or on my Ubuntu to get updated? Oh, why?
Well, you know what? And they would be the same ones if they were on Arch complaining about this black screen problem that's everybody's dealing.
That's the issue.
So that's the trade-off, right?
You want a rolling release. When you get the rolling release and encounter your first issue on a rolling release, you start bad-mouthing the rolling release. You go back to the old, then to start complaining about how slow it is, to go back to it's a never-ending cycle.
I want the latest and greatest packages, Steve. But at the same time, I don't want things to update and break. It's like, well, that's an oxymoron. That's not the way.
But the problem that we have is that they also want the latest and greatest to run on that 20-year-old potato.
Yeah, that's another problem. Yeah,
like, I mean, people should. I mean, other than the fact that it's amazing that anything that it's amazing that any of this works, but it's another thing to know that, like, I don't people appreciate what a struggle it was to find, a program that had the label on the box and you didn't actually accidentally buy another one that, something that was for your XT wouldn't work on your Tandy.
Right.
Exactly. I don't think people understand that struggle. I mean, I hate to say first world problems, but it's one of these things.
Exactly. Like recently I went through, there was a customer, because I have a store that every year or year and a half I get one customer, but in the store I got a customer who had a Core 2 Duo system. They didn't want to upgrade, too expensive, they don't have the money, whatever, valid excuses, because our situation is not very good, economic situation is not very good, but they wanted the latest and greatest on that Core 2 Duo from 2013. So I have a Core 2 Duo in the shop that the church donated to me. I installed the latest version of Mint. Technically it installs. Try to open anything, you'll grow a beard before the program launches.
Yeah.
So technically it runs, but this thing has an AGP card, the Nvidia 9600 GT or whatever.
The problem isn't that, like, the desktop environment. It's like you could install like Mint XFCE and it'll run on the thing. The problem is, as soon as you launch the web browser, which is what everybody's going to have to get into, it's not going to run. It's not going to run well. So
I ran Firefox and tried to open a YouTube video. The YouTube video literally, and I'm not lying here, I'm not exaggerating, it took 5 minutes to tell me that it cannot play back the video. 5 minutes only to tell me that it cannot play back the video. No hardware acceleration detected, although it has an Nvidia card.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's not a problem that is fixable. I mean, the modern web it is what it is. Like, you need a machine. It can't be, some of those 15-year-old laptops that are sitting around that people still try to hang on to. It's not going to run any modern web apps for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So people who expect computers from 2013 to run 2025 level software, they're dreaming. They're dreaming.
I mean, the backward compatibility that Windows created, that ecosystem of backward compatibility, I think has spoiled people.
Yeah, I agree. But they undone themselves with Windows 11, because with Windows 11, it's not compatible with 4-year-old hardware.
Right, but what's amazing is a YouTube video that I watched, and I really kind of thought about this. You can have the latest and greatest x86 machine, and you can still install and run DOS.
Yeah,
you can still install what?
DOS.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll have better compatibility probably to a certain level than you will than trying to run old Windows software on current Windows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I have Windows 3.11 running in a modern enough VM on VMware, and it runs flawlessly. Windows 2000, I use this to play a game that I love and I adore from way back when. It's never gonna get a modern release. It's called Gangsters 2.
Don't know
it's
that
my
one.
favorite game of all time. You should check it. It's amazing. But it runs flawless and the fact that there are fans of Windows, super fans, I might call them. I don't know if you know Michael on JD. He does
videos. He's pretty popular.
Yeah, he and other people, he teamed up with other people, and they created legacy update. And what legacy update does, it updates your Windows 2000, your Windows XP to the latest and greatest packages available for them, even using updates that were put at some point behind a paywall. Like my Windows 2000 is SP 4.5 because they created a custom SP 4.5 that contains all the updates. It installs just like any regular service pack.
See, and I love Windows 2000. In fact, I liked it over XP.
Yeah,
because I was not a fan of I'm a very visual person because that's just my nature and part of my industry. But for one thing, I thought, like, why? I understand the visual pleasure of it, but I'm like, I found it unnecessary when Windows 2000 existed. So
yeah, Windows 2000 is the best window. It will always be, in my book, the best Windows that ever got released. A close second is Windows 7.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
I'm
as far
as it goes
with you. Yeah,
that's as
you
far
guys
as it
are
goes.
crazy. It was Windows 98 was
okay. 98 second edition.
Yeah, well, 98 has its own issues when you plug a USB, it blue screens. But other than that, yes, it is a good operating system. But third, not
USB.
second, not
that was really new technology in 1998. Steve, you can't fault it for that.
Well, there were two things wrong Windows 95 and Windows 98 that a lot of people don't realize that was such an issue back then. It was CD-ROMs and USB. Yeah. In fact, they had to have their own sub updates in order to deal with those two major developments in the industry.
Firmware updates for CD-ROMs, I remember those. If I want to use Windows and I have no choice but to use Windows for the small stuff, I use Windows 2000 because I know my stuff is very old. And like, for example, I want to use 3D Studio Max. I still have a copy of 3D Studio Max 2.5.
Well, if you want Windows 2000, just use ReactOS because that's essentially Windows 2000. I mean,
well, it might be ReactOS might be more secure.
Well, now, yeah, obviously, because it's actually being developed. Windows 2000 obviously isn't. So,
yeah, but I recently had to go back to install Windows in dual boot because Doom Dark Ages got released recently.
I know you were excited about that.
Yeah. I paid $70 for it before it increased in price to $100 and above. I paid the early tax, the early adopter tax, or the discount. I went on the early adopter discount. I got it. I got the Ultimate Edition, the Premium Edition, whatnot. You get the soundtrack and visuals and whatnot. But I needed to play the game before anyone else because on AMD, on Linux, day one, it didn't work. Only it worked for NVIDIA users. And those NVIDIA users encountered an issue with Denuvo because it included Denuvo anti-tamper protection thing, because when it allowed you only 3 launches, because when you switch Proton versions, it considers it as a new instance and a new instance and a new instance. So if you tried more than 3 times 3 Proton versions, it would flag and you would be banned for 24 hours. So in order to avoid all that, and it didn't work on AMD, so I had to play it on Windows.
Well, Steve, I'm going to ask you a question because you may actually know how to fix this. I don't know. I haven't been able to find a fix. But Battle.net, I can't get into my Diablo 2 Resurrected because when you launch it, I'm using bottles to launch.
Like me, okay.
It just crashes. Like it just.
I have a fix for that. You need to set it to Proton 10, Proton GE10. You need to get Proton GE10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hey, Hipdad. Lurking as usual. But you need to launch it with Proton GE10. You set the runner in your gaming bottle to Proton GE10.
Okay.
But that comes at a caveat. With a caveat.
Okay.
The UI of how can I put this? The UI of Battle.net, you might get issues. The buttons are badly drawn.
I'm not worried about that as long as I can launch the game.
You can launch it.
Right.
I tried launching. Since you are on X11, I don't think you've encountered this issue. But for Wayland users, since for anyone on Wayland watching the live stream, if you set bottles to run exclusively in Wayland, it will launch, but all your game launchers are going to be wonky GUI wise. The buttons are not going to be redrawn very well. Like right now, I am currently, because I'm running in Wayland, KDE Wayland, even if I set bottles to X11, but since I'm running on Wayland, it's going to run it on X Wayland. And by running it in X Wayland, I have the wonky issues in the GUI. I can run the game, but the game will just occupy a quarter of my screen.
Huh.
It's not going to occupy the full screen. It occupies the full screen for a second, and then it goes back to a quarter of the screen. So there's this issue right now they need to fix in Proton.
Well, I'm going to try to play some Diablo 2 later today, and I'm going to try your fix. I'll let you know if it works or not. So.
Yeah, because you're on X11, you should have no issues. Because
I haven't been able to log in for weeks, which, you know, I made a video about
I'm playing Diablo
back.
4. I'm playing Diablo.
Yeah.
I'm playing Diablo 4, and I just killed the last queen. But apparently, when I respawned, I still have more missions to do. So I need to finish those.
The other trick sometimes I used with any kind of Battlenet stuff or any kind of Blizzard stuff was go and find the exe and start the game from the exe.
Run it through native wine?
Yeah.
No, just run it like you normally do, but execute it through the exe instead of Battlenet.
Is that the game? You mean the game exe?
Yep.
The game exe will launch Battlenet anyway. So.
Right. And sometimes when you do it that way, it fixes Battlenet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something to try. Yeah.
Yeah, another thing to try, because I'm playing Diablo 4, and for me on Wayland, I get a black screen for the launcher, but it creates, when you run it in pure Wayland, when you uncheck the X11 in the permissions and you just set it to pure Wayland, the GUI is black. You can't see anything, and it creates its own system tray. It opens a new window with a dedicated system tray in Wayland, in whatever, and you can only access it there. You won't see the icon in your native system desktop DE system tray. It's going to create a separate system tray. You can launch the game from there.
Another news topic I wanted to bring up, especially since you mentioned something about Firefox a little bit ago. Mozilla is getting rid of the Pocket service and Fakespot, which I didn't even know what the hell Fakespot was, but I guess it's this thing they had where it would spot potentially fake, like, online reviews and AI generated crap to let you know, hey, that's probably not a real person that wrote that. Well, that sounded like kind of a cool service. Pocket I didn't like, but I know some people apparently did use it, because some people were complaining, oh, what am I going to do now?
You mean those 500 girls I follow on Instagram that just had to see me and talk to me? Those are fake. Oh my God, I didn't know.
The ones that send you the random text messages and pretend like, oh, I accidentally texted the wrong number. Who are you? Hey, here's my picture.
Or they say, hey, Calvin, are you there, Calvin?
Yeah.
Like, I get text messages and I just delete and report as junk.
Yeah. But Pocket, I know a lot of people here in Lebanon who use Pocket a lot, because a lot of computers that have an OS installed, which is rare. In Lebanon, it's very rare to buy a laptop or a desktop with a pre-installed Windows. It's very rare, because they'd rather not install an operating system than install a pirated version. So the OS is on you, but most companies that do ship an OS, they ship it with Firefox. Like Windows, they ship, of course, Edge with Firefox next to it, because Edge you cannot get rid of unless you want to break your system. But they always include Firefox as a second, and then people tend to use Firefox more than Edge, and those people use Pocket because they tend to save a lot of news article to read later.
Right.
especially in a politically tense situation like this. They save a lot of news articles to read later, and I got a lot of those people come to me. What are you going to do today? Where Pocket is going? What are you going to do? I'm like, just log into your
I was actually
Firefox
surprised
profile
so
and
many.
save.
Yeah, I was surprised that so many people had that reaction. I was like, people really use that thing? But apparently a lot of people did. I do think
well, I mean, it's kind of like an aggregate for some people. They probably use it like an RSS feed.
Yeah, true. I think some of this, Mozilla killing some of these projects is they've really just lost so much market share, and they're in such bad shape now.
Well, they relied too much on Google.
Yeah, and that money's going away. It's like, hey, we might actually need to start focusing on making a good web browser and having people actually use the thing.
Well, see, the problem is that their numbers are so low that it's almost a death spiral.
It's almost impossible for them to come back at this point. That's where I was going to go. It's like you've dug yourself such a deep hole, because they have less than 2%. And market share as far as web browser usage.
And I'm disappointed because I supported Firefox so long, because I was a Netscape navigator and communicator.
Yeah, I mean, I've always used Netscape and Firefox until about 3 or 4 years ago, when it became apparent, like, this thing is not going to last.
Well, I still maintain the best version of Firefox was 0.3b beta. I think after that, it all went downhill.
Yeah, when they decided to shift to the numbering scheme of Chrome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. But for me, it's Vivaldi. But I was almost gonna quit Vivaldi recently, because on KDE, on desktop environments, I'm not gonna say KDE specifically, but on desktop environments, when you install Vivaldi and it creates a desktop file in your app menu or dock or whatever, when you launch it, it's gonna it did that on GNOME and KDE for me. When you click on the icon, it will launch Vivaldi, and it's gonna launch the settings app at the shortcuts dialog, key bindings dialog for each app. So apparently it wasn't Vivaldi's fault, because the issue was stemming from Chrome. Now, and for the longest time, Vivaldi was shipping Chromium using the Chromium engine 134, and that was the problematic version. Only recently, like 3 days ago, did they move away from 134, and the issue was fixed.
Now you can because I don't know if people have, maybe they've caught on to this or not, but you can actually use Vivaldi almost like you can Netscape Communicator, because you can get RSS feed and I think mail. And most people, I don't think, have explored that option, but I always go past it because I'm not ready to make that switch, because I'm so entrenched in Thunderbird that I'm even having trouble moving over to Betterbird. But then again, it's one of those things where it's just another downstream, project that you're hoping that all the trouble stuff gets taken out. But and you actually get an improved product, because I'm ready for something else besides Chrome based.
I'm ready I'm like you. I'm almost ready to switch away from Chrome and all the Google stuff. But since I'm going to be coming back to YouTube, I can't really move away. The only problem right now I'm going through is Google workspaces for the paid users. They keep increasing their pricing every 3 months. Every 3 months, they increase the prices by $2. The prices by $2 every 3 months.
I think they're trying to become parity with Microsoft, and hopefully nobody notices.
Yeah, hopefully nobody, but I am noticing, because I am someone with not enough cash to be able to afford it. But the problem is, I'm so entrenched into it. My main email for everything, all my logins everywhere, is the Google Workspaces email.
Well, and I think there's a way. Well, actually, speaking of email, but not to make too much of a sidetrack, but DT, do you still use MailSpring or whatever it was that you were using as an email client?
I might have it installed, but I don't really use it anymore. I'm using Thunderbird these days. But I hop a lot.
Well, yeah.
Because none of these email clients are great. I like Thunderbird. I like Mailspring. I like Geary. Geary's all right. Kmail's okay. I mean, they're all, I don't know. That's why I don't stick to one very long. I try different things. Hell, I could use Emacs as my email client, and actually it works really well. I don't do that because I'm in Emacs on screen all the time, and I don't need my emails in a buffer that would sometimes be on video. So for privacy reasons, I don't use Emacs as my mail client, although I certainly could if I didn't do the YouTube channel.
I was using Spark when they had a desktop application. I don't know if they still do. I still use Spark on my iPhone. I use it on my Android as well, but now my Android has such a bad battery that even connected to the computer and making a video, it depletes. It doesn't charge.
Right.
It requires a fast charger to charge. But I use Spark on my Android when I use my Android. But Spark now is very entrenched into AI. But thank the Lord that all the AI features are behind a paywall. You can keep using the free version, you will get none of the AI features. So I keep using it because I'm too lazy to switch. Because iOS Mail is the worst mail application known to man. So
so we don't want iOS Mail when they open source it. Got it.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm good with it for limited use, but that's about it.
Actually, if Apple ever open source Safari, that could be something that could compete a little bit.
I actually used to enjoy using that when they supported the version for Windows.
Yeah. Safari, here's why I don't use Safari on my iPad or my MacBook or my iPhone. When I browse the websites on Vivaldi on my iPhone or iPad, it doesn't cache as much as Safari does, because when I look at the files, the caching of Vivaldi, it's around 100 megabytes. It doesn't go much above 100 megabytes, whereas in Safari, it reached upwards of 10 gigabytes. Safari caches everything because they keep trying to convince us that by caching all these websites, the next time you visit them, you don't have to refresh and reload, but the content changes every second. Why wouldn't we want it to refresh? We don't want to see the same pictures. It's never the same pictures like 15 minutes later. Like, what the hell are you doing? So I uninstalled, well, you cannot uninstall Safari, but I disabled Safari and I cleaned it up. And now I'm using Vivaldi on all my phones and tablets, and it caches 100 megabytes and a little bit more, but never 10 gigabytes.
One thing that I do have to appreciate, at least what Thunderbird or Mozilla, Betterbird does, and some of these other ones, is the adoption of the EML and MBox and all that stuff format, where it's so much more open and the portability is so much greater, whether it's moving from one machine to another. That whole flat file aspect of things.
Well, you're always going to have that with open source software rather than proprietary software. Proprietary software, unfortunately, is destined to die at some point. Yeah, you're gonna end up with
for things like this, I can appreciate it, but I use in my industry, I use a lot of proprietary software, but I don't see how what I use could ever happen without proprietary interest behind it. So
sure, there are certain things that are always going to be proprietary software. People often ask about like financial software and online banking and stuff like that. Yeah, none of that stuff's ever going to be open sourced.
Yeah,
ever.
and you can, I can appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, there's because people
we don't need
they want to be extreme and go the like Richard Stallman route. I'll never use anything that's proprietary. Well, good luck with that. Do you have a debit card? Because it's not going to work in anything that's open source. There's no such thing.
If anybody has that, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was to say, if anybody's ever been to a data center and see what a client that has PCI compliance behind it knows what they have to go through, you'll understand proprietary and appreciate it.
Right.
At least in that aspect of it.
Like, we don't want our banking apps to be open source, otherwise how secure will they be?
Right. I mean, that's part of the thing is they can't have it open.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
and in my industry, they've tried to do a lot of open source things, and there are some companies that are tried to do it. But when you talk about usability and compatibility and other stuff like that, at an academic level, they've tried, but nothing ever catches on. Partially because of big business interest to a certain level, but also they just can't get to the feature completeness or the ease of usability for people who are barely tech savvy.
Yeah. Like, recently someone was asking about why doesn't AMD open source their Adrenalin software? You can use Adrenalin software, it's available for Linux, but it's hard coded to the AMD Pro proprietary drivers. So you have to give up the open source drivers in order to use Adrenalin software. And then again, Adrenalin software has all these knobs that people might end up breaking their system rather than doing anything.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of I use Adrenalin for Windows stuff, and I'm waiting actually because I use 2504 Ubuntu Bungie, and I am waiting for the binary compatibility of the latest AMD GPU drivers, because it actually is a much better experience than the open source driver.
It is, but for beginners, too many knobs to turn, and they might end up breaking.
Yeah, I like having the option, but I also a lot of times I just end up using stuff as default because for me it's just good enough.
We all have the common complaint when it comes to AMD drivers. They don't have a control panel to turn knobs, to twist knobs, to overclock.
But that's the tinker nature of people that use
Linux.
So.
There is the open source version sort of Adrenalin called LACT that is now compatible with NVIDIA drivers as well, NVIDIA hardware as well. So you can turn all the knobs you want using that application. So in case you didn't know about it, look it up on your distro's repositories. LACT.
I will have to say that the experience of trying to use AMD or NVIDIA about 12, 13 years ago actually got me to abandon Linux for a while, because it was so terrible of an experience, because NVIDIA, the way it was, but also AMD Catalyst.
Oh, Catalyst. Oh my God, Catalyst was a nightmare.
Yeah, for me, I was like, you know what? I just can't deal with it right now. I'm not that.
Yeah.
You're talking Rage Pro days.
Before that, like the 290X days, the 6000 series HD cards.
Hi, Ben. Yep.
Go ahead, Deb.
Well, I mean, I recently started trying to use Wayland, the KDE session, and it hey Junior, it works great I can play my games, works great, and I can do the dual screen again. Well, I'll hope to be back to triple screens, but the funny thing is the only reason I bring this up is because Steve's a Vivaldi person. I go to use Vivaldi, and rather than it automatically logging me in and syncing me to the server, it wants me to, get rid of, kill all my data and relog in. It won't. I choose the proper login icon, and it does nothing. Now, now I come back to XFCE, and it's fine. Usually when I reinstall a system, I take the Vivaldi folders and put them in before I start Vivaldi, but I shouldn't have to do that I'm using the same folders.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's a common issue I go through on a daily basis, especially that I have 5 different computers. It keeps logging me out, and when I try to log in, it says missing password, although I typed the correct password in there. It keeps saying missing password. I'm like, what is missing? I typed the password. You have to do it multiple times for it to understand. And when it does log you in, it doesn't synchronize. You try to sync, it pops, sometimes, very rarely, it pops up with a message, oh, you want to replace all, wipe out the data from the server and replace it with the content from your computer. I'm like, are we Apple?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's when I learned from doing, since I'm retired now, I get bored real quick and I'm trying different distros. And I just take the Vivaldi local folder and the Vivaldi config folder, and I save them, and I put them in to my system that I just created before I start Vivaldi, and boom, I'm right in.
That's exactly what I do, but since my Vivaldi is Flatpak, I use Warehouse, and Warehouse has a snapshots feature. So I create a snapshot of all the applications that I will need to move from computer to computer, and I restore them using Warehouse, and I'm done, back up and running. Especially with Vivaldi and Ferdium. Those are, and what's it called? The FTP application. So FileZilla. So FileZilla, Ferdium, and Vivaldi, those full snapshots keep moving from computer to computer because trying to log in is a nightmare. So
and the problem that I have with things like Vivaldi is that when I do move my profiles, the problem that I have is that it ends up not bringing along the plugin or the extensions.
Oh,
I have to reinstall my
mine does fine.
Mine does fine too.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to comment on real quick before I start shoving food in my face is the open source. MyChart, they have MyChart for your medical records and get in touch with your doctor and everything. I believe MyChart brags that they're open source. They got a little tag on there or whatever that they're open source. Well, my MyChart for my organization got hacked.
I heard of that.
Yep. So yeah, open source has its downsides.
Major downsides. Speaking of, I wanted to transition before we end the stream to the situation with Arch install, because now I have the
let's get back on some negative news, because I've got a negative one to I know is going to be spicy. So let's start with Arch install.
Because now I have proof to back it up. I recently decided to stop talking shit about Arch install and do something about it. So instead of telling people, report issues, I reported issues. And I included a few suggestions as well. Like, for example, with Cosmic. Arch install does not enable the Cosmic greeter. So the end result is TTY. After installing Cosmic using the Arch install, you fall onto a TTY. There's no greeter to greet you. So I told them about the fix. Short respect to this guy, the creator of Arch install, respect. I have nothing negative to say about him. He was like, thanks for the fix. But no later than 5 minutes later, because I suggested the inclusion of XDG user dirs, because they're not included, maybe because Cosmic are working on their own version. I do not know that. I don't have the information on that. But if not included, it's going to be like Thuna. You're going to end up with just your profile folder in the bookmarks on the left side.
Right. Yeah.
So I suggested that they include it. I started being attacked like really aggressively. I'm not talking about simple, no, we shouldn't include it. No, aggressively being attacked and talked down to, because they considered that as bloat.
Well, I was gonna, as soon as you brought it up, you know, the XDG user dirs is not part of any Arch meta package or anything. Like, it is something that the user would have to right. But you know, they're trying to be very vanilla in everything they do. You know, they maybe not everybody wants a home directory filled with downloads and documents, all of the directories, and that, which I get, but
the aggressiveness of the reply. That's
but you don't have to be
like
a-hole about it, right? So,
and I suggested for a Hypeland, for example, I was like, okay, the Hypeland developers have a lot of Qt applications in some of their stuff, but I was like, it was a suggestion, emphasis on suggestion. I was like, instead of bringing in Dolphin, because that's the only Qt thing they brought in the Arch install, I was like, instead of shipping, since you consider everything to be bloat, you want to be as vanilla as possible, why not ship Thunar instead? And I was like, Hyper Pocket agent, you forgot that. So without this specific plugin, it's not a dependency of anything. This is maybe the fault of the Hypeland developers, but without this Hyper Pocket agent, when somebody wants to open something as root or do anything related to root that requires the agent to pop up to requesting the password, the root password, without this, the prompt is not gonna appear. It's broken. It's like you're shipping a broken system. And I suggested another package. I forgot which one. Instead of shipping Wofi, I was like, why don't you ship Rofi Wayland? Because that's the one that every single person using Hypeland is using. Because Wofi is not a direct fork of Rofi. It's its own little thing that it's Rofi, but stripped down to the bones, to the bare essentials.
Do you even need Rofi Wayland though? Because just the standard Rofi works, or it did for me. Rofi worked on Hyperland. Just
no, you need Rofi Wayland because Rofi, the regular Rofi, was built against Sway. It will complain about Sway related stuff.
Because I don't think I had to do anything weird with Rofi. I'm just using the standard Rofi. Because of course, right now I'm in X11 with Qtile, but I've got
on Hypeland because I ran it from terminal. I ran Rofi command in terminal, Rofi drun -- blah blah. It complained about Sway related stuff for whatever reason. So so most people use Rofi Wayland. So I suggested that. I got attacked, like as if I was pulling the rug from under their feet. Really badly attacked. I'm like, those are just suggestions. And somebody agreed to my suggestion. They were like, yeah, we don't need to ship a half a ton of Plasma dependencies by including Dolphin. So they agreed. The pull request was approved, but the others for KDE, for example, I suggested like Flatpak KCM and whatever. They were like, no. I said, okay, those are just suggestions. Okay, you don't want to include them, don't include them. But the aggressiveness of some of the contributors to Arch install, not acceptable. Not acceptable. If you want people to contribute, you don't treat them that way.
Well, you can always just fork it, or just do what I did, Steve. Just write your own installer. Just because I don't want to deal with what somebody else is already, they've already went a path I don't want to go down. It's like I'm just going to do exactly my little limited set with an installation program, and that's all I'm going to put in it. So
I wanted to do the same thing as you, but I thought I put something in my head, and it really annoyed me. Was like, you're doing it. However we do it, people are going to complain. So I was why not leverage Arch installs partitioning, leverage Arch installs user creation and whatever, all the basic stuff. Just ignore the profile section. And I will supply you with a proper DE or WM install script that you can run after installing base Arch.
Yeah, I like that idea. Actually, just rip out everything from the Arch install script other than installing the base Arch install.
Yeah.
And then, because that'll just take a few minutes, probably less than 5 minutes. And then after that, have them run a post-installation script to throw out all your graphical stuff on. Yeah.
That's what I did with the Zero Linux DE install script. It currently has 5 DEs. It's got KDE, GNOME, XFCE, Hypeland, and Cosmic. And a proper way to install them with the XGG user dirs, with the greeter enabled. I fixed all the downsides of Arch installs profile section fixed with, and I include my toolkit with every single one because my toolkit has a proper driver installer, which I need to mention one thing I forgot to mention earlier. Currently, you know, the Nouveau drivers for NVIDIA, the open source drivers for NVIDIA, all ISOs like mine who rely on it to boot, therefore, those ISOs are not compatible with the latest 50 series GPUs. It will not boot because the Nouveau drivers don't have support for the 50 series. We're still waiting on that. So if you have a 50 series, don't install Zero Linux. So don't even think about it. I will announce when it's compatible in the when the time comes.
All right. Now, spicy topic.
Yeah, that's the Arch install issues, basically. And one last thing I'm going to say is, you can call me out for it if I'm wrong, but they give you the false impression that you can contribute to the profile section, but every time you do, they're gonna attack you, and because they're already set in their ways. This is the impression I got. They're already set in their ways. Any suggestion will get poked at with a however, what I don't know how the saying goes. You're gonna get poked at, and everything you suggest will be looked at with a needle, with a big magnifying glass to see why. Why are you suggesting this? Let's open up this package, see what it contains, see what it is. They're gonna make you feel so unwelcome. So if you want to suggest additions to profiles or changes to the profiles, don't. Not right now, at least, because right now you're gonna get attacked. You're not gonna get anything normal. They're already set in their ways. Let them be. Just report issues in case issues are there, but don't suggest anything to be added.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of obvious just the way the script is designed. Every desktop that it installs is not great. It's not really something that's well put together. It's still designed to be that distribution. They get you kind of up and running, but you're gonna have to do some work. You're gonna have to go read the wiki. You're gonna, that's kind of what it's.
It's very arch.
It's very arch.
What pissed me off is when my friend Airmax, shout out to Airmax, because whenever he installs KDE using the Arch install script, he opens settings. Half the settings don't work.
Yeah.
Because they decided not to include the proper KCMs.
Well,
so
yeah, let's go ahead and one topic I wanted to get into with you, Steve. But anybody can contribute to this discussion. But my frustrations here in especially recent years with theming Linux, as far as GTK and Qt. So let's talk. First of all, why in the hell does Libadwaita apps only look right in GNOME? Like, who thought that was a great idea to where we're going to have these apps that only look right on one desktop?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. And I noticed on DTOS, you open GTK apps, they're white.
Well, not now.
Well, you addressed it. Because all you needed to do was ship a GTK.
Well, I didn't bother theming anything. Like if those first ISOs, I didn't even think about theming. I was worried about the installation program. But now, I've got some basic theming. That's
so they look coherent. Basically, it's just a matter of GTK 3.0, GTK 4.0 folders in your home directory.
But I'm talking about specifically, those Libadwaita, GTK 4
Libadwaita
apps
because.
They only look the rounded corners and all the thing. It only looks right on GNOME. It doesn't look right on any other desktop.
Let's take it from the point of view of Linux Mint. What did Linux Mint do to Libadwaita apps? They backported them to GTK 3.
Okay.
This was their solution back then.
But is that a real solution? I mean, I guess it kind of works, but that's
that's why they quit that solution.
I mean, this is so frustrating that anybody would have to do that.
Yeah, that's why it was too much work. That's why they quit the solution. So they decided to make their own apps more Libadwaita style. Yeah. So the reason they only work good in the respective desktop environment, and I agree with this. I am one of the few people that agrees with this mentality, because I am the type of person who uses QT apps on KDE, GNOME, GTK apps on GNOME. I separate the applications. If I have to use a GTK app on KDE, I make sure it's a GTK3 app. I find an alternative that uses GTK3. But as for the reason why they're like this is because they cannot think about it from the perspective of, let's say, KDE developers. They cannot work on GNOME apps because it's not their ecosystem. So they work only on their ecosystem of apps, making sure everything works fine. If they separate, united we stand, divided we fall, basically kind of mentality. So if we put all our attention on our own ecosystem, it's going to be okay. If we divide our attention into between our ecosystem and the GNOME ecosystem and the whatever ecosystem, it's going to end up being half-assed.
Right.
But there is good news. There is light at the end of the tunnel, because KDE internally are working on a new theming engine, completely separate from the settings, that will take care of GTK and Qt applications.
Yeah, because the Qt apps have some issues. As many distributions as I've tried over the years, same thing I'm sure with you guys, on certain distros, Qt apps don't look good because they don't have the necessary theming and plumbing and all that to make them look right on that particular desktop. So it's not just strictly a GTK problem; it's also a Qt problem.
But that leaves, like, let's say they did finish up their theming engine. The decision at this point rests on the shoulders of the GNOME developers if they will integrate that theming application or support for Qt applications on their desktop. And from what we know from the GNOME developers, they're never going to do that.
In the chat, Bradford was saying, yeah, VLC is all white on XFCE. You tried to make it match the dark theme. Well, XFCE is GTK-based desktop, and VLC is a Qt app. So that's you're going to have to,
Yeah.
The trick with the XFCE and having all dark themes is you have to fiddle with the toggle for it to always adjust to the window manager XFWM, and it will sometimes fix that issue where your colors and stuff are the same all the way across the board.
And on GTK based desktops, you need Qt5CT and Qt6CT for Qt apps.
Yeah. I mean, is that what you do with Zero Linux? You just do the Q6.
On GNOME, yes, because I don't know if anybody knew that, but Calamaris is a Qt app. So in order to get my Calamaris to stick to the
dark theme,
to the theming, I had to use Qt6CT, and set the environment variable in the environment variable file.
Right.
Same with Hypeland.
Yeah, what is the environment variable? It's like something plasma theme, something another.
No,
what is it?
Environment
Qt something.
No,
it starts with Qt.
Yeah, Qt6CT. You set the environment variable, the KDE environment variable equal the Qt environment equals Qt6CT.
Okay.
For Qt6CT to be able to, and then you have to apply the theme with Kvantum. Look at how backwards that is.
So what are we using? We're using Kvantum.
You need to use all of them. You need to use all of them.
Because you could also set that variable to Kvantum too, couldn't you?
You can set it to in Hyperland. You set it to Kvantum. In Hyperland.
I don't know. This is part of why it's a mess.
It's the best on GTK-based desktops, but and something like Hyperland. But if you're using native Qt desktop like KDE, and KDE do a better job to handle GTK and Qt apps than GNOME will ever do to Qt apps.
Well, it's a
Right.
similar problem to I call it the Java effect. You go to update Java, at least in Windows you did it, and I believe it's still being done here, but Java's like being secret nowadays. You go to install, you have Java 2.3 and Java 3.0 comes. You go and install Java 3.0, but it leaves Java 2.3. Then you go and look and you find out you've got Java 2.3 to 2.5 to 4.0 to 6.7. I mean, it just stacks and stacks and stacks. And I believe the same thing is with the QTs.
Yeah, that is exactly it. And there's the problem of Flatpaks. Like when you install Flatpaks, let's say on GTOS, you're going to notice that on GTOS specifically, because you don't ship the necessary file, is Flatpaks are not going to respect the GTK theme that you have set in your for your system. Why? Because you are missing the Flatpak override file in var lib Flatpak override global. You need that global file in there, specifically giving it access to .themes in your home folder. Once you give it access to .themes in your home folder, only then will Flatpak respect your desktop theme. I learned that the hard way, and now I ship it on every single ISO. So now but it will, and the best part is it will respect any theme you apply later on, because you're not specifying which theme to use, just the .theme, the active theme in the .themes folder. So whatever you switch to is going to follow suit. So without that file, users will have to do it using Flatseal or Flatpak permissions manually every time they switch themes. So this is something I learned recently, and now that's why I ship it with every ISO, and not a single user complained about Flatpaks not respecting the system theme. So there's that.
Well, so, one problem solved, right?
In a convoluted way, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's a mess.
When it comes to theming, when it comes to theming, don't do that. That's why on Zero Linux GNOME Edition, I stick to Libadwaita.
Yeah, I just, when I look at all of it, I just think, how did we even get into this mess? Like, how did it become so crazy? But
KDE has not much of a problem. The problem mainly is on other desktop environments and window managers. It's not the KDE, because that's its purpose, styling and pricing and customization. So that's why it's easier on KDE than it is everywhere else. But I'm not saying that will not come with its own caveats, because recently, since the ISO I uploaded is March, and it's been there for 3 months. If you download it now and you update, there's 800 packages to update, like 6 gigabytes worth. After the update, the theming is going to break. And from what I saw on KDE 6.4, it's going to break even more. That's why I am putting the next month's ISO on hold until Plasma 6.4 is released, and I have tested it. So it's going to come out late next month, not early next month. The one I'm going to ship next month early, like the 2nd or the 3rd, is GNOME, because GNOME didn't move much. It's still GNOME 48 and everything is working, no problems. It's KDE 6.4 that's going to cause a headache, because they included a new window, what do you call it? The window decoration theming engine. It's called Aurora, or Aurorae at the end, AE at the end. Yeah, it's a new window decoration theming engine. Yeah.
All right.
And Spectacle is completely new. You remember how on KDE, when you click the print screen, you get a GUI in the center and you select if you want to capture whatever.
Right.
Now it's more like Flameshot.
Well, I like Flameshot.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, just ship Flameshot.
So when you click print screen, it's just going to give you a bar at the top and a bar at the bottom. You select what you want to do, but it's no longer a GUI. The GUI is gone. Right. For me, who got used to the GUI, that's going to be a change to get used to.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, when it comes to theming, unless you're willing to put in the work, because you still have to make sure the theme works that you chose for your
Well, that's
for your
another
config.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to stay in constant contact with the theme developers.
Well, creating themes, especially now, creating GTK themes is so much more of a task than it used to be.
Especially because the GNOME people, the GTK people, basically are anti-theming.
Right. So they have made it just incredibly difficult to create your own custom themes and keep up.
Like,
with
did you know that? Did you know that Capuchin stopped maintaining GTK themes? They now only ship Qt themes.
I don't doubt it, because I wouldn't want to maintain a GTK theme.
Not
I have in the past, way back in the day, like GTK2 themes. Had a lot of those that I created myself that were kind of cool. It was a much easier thing to work with. They never broke. But the minute they went from GTK2 to GTK3, things changed drastically. And then now you're on GTK4, eventually GTK5, and on forward. It has become a real mess to create and maintain theming.
Yeah, and there are only one desktop. There's only one desktop environment and one window manager that are 100% for theming, rising, customizing. It's KDE for desktop environment and Hypeland for window managers. Those are number one for styling and rising and customizing. That's why it works best there. But anything else, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's interesting you went with a tiling window manager, because what are you theming with Hyperland? There's no graphical applications with it, right?
Hyperland ships blank. You don't have a file manager. You don't have a terminal. You don't have anything. So it's up to you to what to install. But the whole purpose of
that's every tiling window manager. I was just wondering why. Yeah, it's just strange. KDE and Hyperland. Oh, what?
Hyperland, because once you select the file manager, for example, you want to theme it. You don't want it to stay blank and white. Whatever terminal you choose.
The real answer there, Steve, you meant to say KDE and Enlightenment. That's where I was. Because that actually has like panels and things, and widgets. That's a real window manager that actually has graphical stuff.
That's a reach.
You don't
Enlightenment with it?
Yeah, I think.
I used to love Enlightenment.
It's gorgeous.
It didn't progress the way it should have.
Well, no.
Enlightenment reminds me a lot of my early Unix days when my dad used to have the Silicon graphics with the Unix. With the drawers and everything. That was a beautiful system. That was my first foray into non-Windows based desktops.
Well, Enlightenment is still good though.
Yeah, it's still good. It's an extreme tweaking thing where if you really want to get into it,
it's for people that really want to play. Right now.
It's its own rabbit hole.
Yeah. So if you want the best out of the box Enlightenment experience. Now, I can't say for everything, but at least the ones that I've come across is eLive CD and OpenSUSE have the best out-of-the-box implementations currently maintained.
Okay. My comment is Microsoft started this whole issue we have nowadays with every computer program or computer operating system or whatever. When they stole MS-DOS or CPM80 and then turned it into MS-DOS, when they stole it and it was flawed and they just stacked on top of it and they're still stacking on top of it. And so that's why we have the syndrome we have today, where people just, rather than fixing it and including the newest version and a new version and getting rid of the old version and going on, they just keep stacking. And it's
easier to stack than to create from scratch. Lazy.
When HipDad mentioned the problem with Java, different versions of things cluttering up your system, the other day I didn't realize it, but I did a Pacman -QQ to see like a list of things that were installed for something, and I specifically wanted to check what Electron version I had. I had like 8 of those things installed. Like, what the hell? So I uninstalled all of them but the latest. So yeah, you end up with crap on the system that you're not even aware of.
Yeah, I'm sure Proton can happen with that too.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stacking on Python packages lately too, where you get an update and then about 2 days later you get another update for a different number. I'm like,
well, that's with programming languages especially. Yeah, you get that.
Yeah, like when I had an update like a week or more ago where it was complaining that I already had files on my system related to that package. I'm like, and it failed the update. I'm like, but you're installing the same package. You should override these files with a newer version. But no, it refused to override. I had to manually uninstall the old version, and it kept a little bit of cruft on the side. So I had to manually delete the directory sudo rmrf, the directory from there, and then did it accept to install the package. I'm like, what? Yeah, things like that will always happen. It's specifically on rolling distros. So
it's
I'm like,
an Arch problem, right?
Well, like I've gotten so used to Arch's issues now I don't feel anything. Okay, I got an error, I fix it in 2 minutes, done deal. But I get why users complain. They don't want to keep wasting time fixing issues. They just want to use their system.
Yeah, I came back to Arch. I was on Debian on MX Linux. I loved MX Linux, but I started having issues with the fact that I was using a 535 NVIDIA driver, and it wouldn't expand to any higher than that. So I started having issues with gaming. I just came back to Arch and XFCE.
Yeah, XFCE is one of the simplest desktop environments to use, as long as you don't start messing with it.
I mean, in an extreme scenario, you could have always added the Debian unstable branch mirrors and
oh, that's another. That's another.
I tried to do a massive update.
If I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole. I'm familiar with
that's essentially distro hopping at that point, because you're gonna have a massive update of probably more than 1,000 packages, and you're gonna reboot, and you better pray during the reboot. It's hit or miss if that's going to work or not.
That's the situation right now with Arch and the new kernel. Oh my God. For AMD users, no problem. For NVIDIA users, better hope and pray.
Every day.
Yeah. And we mentioned it at the beginning of the stream. If you run into any issues with a black screen and you're an NVIDIA user, it's probably due to drivers, specifically Vulkan drivers. You may just reinstall that, and it might fix the issue. It looks like it has fixed the issue for some people. So I don't know.
Yeah, if not, it could be the kernel. Try to root and downgrade.
Yeah, you could downgrade the kernel. Yeah, as well, or just the LTS kernel.
Yeah, or install the LTS kernel and boot into that while you wait for the main kernel to get fixed. But it's not going to be fixed in 6.14.7 or 8.
And really, most people should probably just stick to the LTS kernel anyway, unless you need like a brand new driver for something, for new hardware. Just
most people who need the latest kernel are people who have specific needs, like controllers with game controllers, because more and more game controller driver support is being added to the newer kernels. Right. But if you don't need the kernel for something specific, stick to the LTS, like DT said. Don't go to the latest version.
Well, guys, just got a few more minutes here, so let's take a minute or two each to give the folks a last word. Ben, how you doing? You want to take a couple minutes to say something?
Well, I've been working hard on the. Ricky and I have been slaving away at the next version of StormOS, which we haven't done much for the June release yet. We are still planning that out. It's probably just going to be, I don't know, just like minor updates, to like packages and things like that, which we will hopefully get out soon. And Steve was so gracious to help with a addition on top of Arch install, which was a XFCE script that we've put out recently, and hopefully we'll get some coverage for that soon. Thank you, Steve. And
No problem.
Yep. And Ricky and I tested that. It went very smooth. And that was very, very cool. And Derek, I hope you make a video about that for us soon. We would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it works similar to how Steve's KDE script works, actually. So either way, yeah, that's what I've been going on with very well. And I also have a 34th birthday coming up on July 16th, so I wanted to put that out there.
Happy
And
early
2
birthday.
months from now.
Yeah, wow, that's a
well,
long time.
about 2.5 roughly. Yeah. Either way, I will.
I'll forget about it tomorrow. You know that I'm old.
I know it, man. I know you'll forget about
I'll get
it.
you.
but
I'll get you the same thing I got you last year.
I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure
even
we all
remember
have
what
a
the hell
birthday
that
this year
was.
sometime.
Nothing.
Well, either way, guys, that's what's going on with me. Oh, and Derek, I did resub to you, but I don't know how long that shit's gonna last.
All right.
Well, I hope it lasts for a while, but you know, I'm always here either way.
Right.
so.
Yeah. Well,
Either way, I'll,
we know where to find each other regardless. So
yeah, email or
yeah,
whatever.
you got my email. I got your email. Yeah.
All right, man.
Take care, man.
All right, Ben.
All right,
Hip
guys.
Dad.
Nice to see you.
Give us the last word, Hip Dad.
Rabbit hole. Everything is a rabbit hole. Don't get scared. Just go down the rabbit hole and eat the veggies that are hanging in the hole and survive and just keep going. And eventually you get to come up for air.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Hip Dad. One last question, because people will ask because of the last stream. What happened to the raccoon?
The raccoons are, let's see here. Maybe I can show you real easy on the phone real quick. I got.
I'm actually
updated.
surprised that the question hasn't come up, or maybe it did in the YouTube chat. I just didn't see it.
I was watching. I didn't see, but let's see here. Let's do this. No, that's not the one I want. Come on. Don't you love Android's order system? There we go. Here's the 3. That's.
Oh, yeah, it almost wants to focus.
Let it focus.
Well, we got a little bit of it there for a second.
Here. Let me see here. There we go.
There we go. Yep.
That's because I got the blur enabled. That's let me disable the blue blur real quick here.
But I can tell that they've they put on some weight since last we saw.
Yeah, there they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Emma, Luke, and Ed. Yeah,
okay.
They've grown quite a bit, and I've got more stories with the mama. She keeps coming around, and she goes into the hole. So now we got this thing where she goes into the hole and she pokes her head out, and I got to give her a cookie or something.
Mm-hmm.
She expects me to give her something, and she goes,
"Yep."
And then there was a skunk. Her name.
They always have skunk friends. I had a cat that had a skunk friend and a possum friend, and they would eat out.
Possums.
They would eat out of the same bowl. Like
yeah,
they were fine.
But me, I went and did this stupid thing. I went and took my phone, and I have a cat door, and I went and poked through the cat door because the skunk was eating right on the other side of the cat door. So I was going to get a good close-up picture and stuff. You know, I don't scare her, so she doesn't sweat me. I didn't realize that Miss Grabby was in the hole, and she come and reached out trying to steal the food from Petite the skunk, and she come around full butthole. And I had to close real quick, man. She didn't spray totally, but she sprayed enough to stink up the door for about a day.
Awesome to hear. All right. Thanks, Dad. George, give us the last word.
Hey, thanks for having these again. They're always fun. And yeah, look forward to the next one.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, George. Steve, give us the last word, sir.
My last word for this one is thank you for these awesome Patreon casts. every month. I look forward to them all the time. I keep waiting sometimes for them to come sooner than later.
Actually, this one came so quick compared from the last one. I almost forgot about it. Like this one rolled around really fast. It was
Yeah, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to yap on and on and on. I hope I didn't tire the listeners. But this time it went very well. I didn't yap on too much. We talked about serious subjects, really valid subjects. So yeah, here's to another one.
We tried to stay on point this time.
Yep. Yeah. And here's to another one.
All right. Thanks, Steve. And Zenobit, you're mic'd up. Would you like to give us a last word? If not, I will share my last word. He may not be mic'd up. Well, I will give my last word. My last word is not Jack Link's beef jerky, because they do not sponsor the channel. Although if you work for Jack Link's, hit me up, Derek@distrotube.com. All right, my last word. You guys in the YouTube chat, awesome. Thanks for your participation. Good comments, questions. These guys that hung out on camera were also awesome, and I do want to thank the patrons that couldn't be here. Oh, let me get back to the screen with the raccoons, and then I'll show the patrons' names here. Awesome. All right, these guys, and these guys, and these guys, and finally, not a black screen. How about this screen? Okay, wave bye to YouTube. Bye.